This is a really profound moment in my life and a major turning point. And, it's not a pandemic moment, but in order to kind of give you the backdrop of what was going on in my life, and given that at the time that you and I are talking, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, I'll just tell you what was going on in my life, at least to the extent I can, based on what the lawyers tell me. No, I'm just kidding. So I I had been, everybody knows the moment that their life turned upside down because of COVID. Whether you got news that the office was closing, or you couldn't go see your, grandmom or dad, or were quarantined with your kids and they were in a state of distress, there was that moment. And for me, what happened is I was taping a daytime talk show here in the United States, and they found COVID at the CBS Broadcast Center in New York. And they walked into the taping room and said, you need to evacuate the building. And within 5 minutes notice, Fern, my show was canceled. I was fired from what had always been a dream job of mine. I grew up, coming home from school, my mom would have Oprah Winfrey or Donahue on here in the United States. And I always wanted to do that and to help people doing it. And so 5 minutes, grab everything you can that's not nailed down, run out the door. Don't even say goodbye to the 130 people I'd worked with for a year. I get in the car, I start driving to Boston. I see the New York City skyline disappearing in the rearview mirror. And, Boston, Massachusetts is where my husband and I live. And then the phone calls start coming in. My daughter's in college in California. They're closing school. What's happening? What's happening? My other daughter's in Spain. I can't get a flight. I can't, and the whole world starts to close down, and we all felt it. So I get home, and those first 3 weeks were basically a blur of alcohol and living in my pajamas and watching Harry Potter, no kidding, on repeat with the kids. There were aspects of it that were fun, but what happened in those 3 weeks is I lost my dream job. My book publisher canceled my book and then told me I had to return the money they had given us, money I'd already spent. Every speech I had for a year started to cancel, and I started to get flashbacks to a moment in my life when my husband and I were nearly $1 million in debt. This was 13 years ago. This is sort of my origin story. We were about to lose everything. And that's when I invented this thing called the 5-second rule. But I started having these flashbacks. We are fucked. Like, this is happening again. Are you kidding me? I'm 52 years old. I've got to reinvent my freaking life again. And one morning I wake up and I use the 5-second rule. You count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I get out of bed. And the anxiety is thumping through me. And I make my bed and I drag myself to the bathroom. And I'm standing there brushing my teeth in my underwear. And I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror. And I think, oh my God, you look like hell. And I had these dark circles under my eyes, and my gray hair was coming in, and I looked haggard and tired. I actually felt sorry for the woman I saw reflected back in the mirror, because I could tell she had the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was worried about her kids who were grieving and anxious and distressed. She was worried about herself, her employees. She was worried about the world and the frontline workers and her parents and her business and everything. And as soon as your thoughts go negative, it's like lint catching in a dryer. More and more and more negativity builds. And so then I started thinking about the day. And who doesn't start their day by going, I'm late, I forgot to do the text, today's going to suck. And then I look at my feet and there's my dog and he still needs to be walked. And I need to be on a Zoom call in 8 minutes. And I just look like bloody hell. And I'm starting to feel heavier and heavier. And what's interesting, Fern, is if you had walked into the bathroom in that moment, I would have been able to spin on a dime and be like, come on, Fern, you got this. You're awesome. I know this sucks, but come on, let's just take it one step at a time. You can face this. But standing there with myself, alone in my underwear, one boob hanging lower than the other, like I couldn't think of anything to say because I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel optimistic. I didn't feel like I could handle what was happening. And as cheesy as it sounds, standing there without a bra on, I found myself just raising my hand and high-fiving the woman I saw in the mirror. Now, here's what's interesting. Almost immediately, I felt my shoulders drop. I chuckled because it's so stupid and cheesy to high-five yourself in the mirror. And it didn't disappear the problems. It didn't change all the stuff I was dealing with, but something inside of me changed. I felt this sense of, okay, I know this sucks. Pick your chin up, Mel. You got this. Come on. And I sent myself into the day. Now, it was the second day that something really interesting happened, because what happened on the second day is when I woke up, I immediately thought about that high five. I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, got out of bed. I made my bed. And as I was walking toward the bathroom, I felt something I'd never felt in my entire life. And I'm going to explain it this way. You know, when you're about to go see a friend, you're going to grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something, and you're about to walk into that cafe, and you feel this sense of excitement that you're going to see somebody you like. And, you know, I felt that as I was sitting, you know, kind of waiting for us to connect. I was so excited to talk to you. As I walked into that bathroom, I felt this sense that I was about to see somebody that I like. Now, I'm going to be 53 years old this year. I think for the first 45 years of my life, I have either criticized the woman I've seen in the mirror or I have ignored her. I have looked forward to seeing outfits that I'm wearing or makeup that I've put on. I have never looked forward to seeing myself.
No, I haven't. I mean, there's an awkwardness. There's a real awkwardness about, because when I was reading this section of your book, I was like, why have I never seen myself in the mirror? I've looked at myself. I've gone, oh, that's what I don't like about it. And there's that. And I can improve that with some eyeliner, whatever. But I've never seen myself. And the beauty of that moment you've just described is seeing yourself was a moment where you hijacked the usual judgment that is just so omnipresent. We don't even think about it. It's just there all the time. When any of us look in the mirror, we go straight to the points we don't like. But you bypass that to empathy. And that is so rare, that we look at ourselves with compassion and that we go, because, you know, the high five habit isn't going like, yeah, you're amazing, you rock. It's, I see you, this is really hard. I get that it's really hard, and it's okay. It's okay to find it hard.
Yes.
But
yes.
we don't look at ourselves in the mirror like that. Like, I tried after reading the book and I was like, this is so fucking weird. I'm looking at myself. It's really awkward. What is that awkwardness?
Oh, okay. This is so sad. Okay. This is really sad. So, you know, I'm going to tell everybody right now, you have to do this 5 mornings in a row, because you will feel resistance and you'll feel exactly what Fern's talking about. You'll feel this awkwardness and this weirdness and this tremendous sense of discomfort. And I want to unpack this on multiple levels, because what that resistance represents is so profoundly sad. And this is what the enormous opportunity is when you start to practice habits of encouragement, of empowerment, of self-love and self-celebration. So first things first, none of us have ever been taught how to truly see ourselves, support ourselves, love ourselves, and be kind to ourselves. We have not. We have encouraged our children to do that. We do it for them. But at some point, you stop listening to your parents and you start criticizing yourself. And so first things first, it's weird and awkward because you've never been taught how to do this. So it's not a habit. Your habit is the exact opposite. And as we know, whether you are trying to create a new habit of eating healthy or not drinking so much or knocking off the caffeine or getting out of bed early, you resist it and it feels weird because it's new. So that's reason number one, but that's not the sad reason. That's the scientific reason. The real reason why you cannot stand in front of the mirror and be with yourself, where you are, how you're feeling in this exact moment of your life, is because you drag your entire past to that moment. Everything that you regret, everything that you're disappointed about, everything that you have survived, the abuse, the trauma, the confusion, the heartbreak, all of your hopes and dreams that have not been realized yet.
Yeah.
They are with you in that moment. You do not see a person who is trying. You do not see a person who is worthy of celebration because of what you have survived in your life. You see somebody who is damaged because of that. You see somebody who is a failure because you're not where you're supposed to be. You see all of the things that you're not instead of all of the things that you are. And so that resistance and that weirdness and that judgment is actually rejection. It is judgment. It is disappointment. And here's the next layer of this. And this is why this habit, while cheesy on its face, I think is the most powerful thing that you could possibly do in your life in terms of adopting a new behavior. We have made the mistake as human beings of believing that you are only worthy of celebration and support when you achieve something that is worthy of celebration and support. So here you are standing with yourself every morning in judgment. The scale, doesn't have the number on it that it needs to be. My bank account isn't where it needs to be. My relationship isn't where it needs to be. My, career isn't where it needs to be. My mental health isn't where it needs to be. And you stand there and judge that. And then you go, cross your arms and go, well, I'm not going to cheer for that person until they get there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just stand there and judge you.
Yeah.
So get out there, you loser, and see if you can lose that weight. Like, it's literally insane. If you watch the marathon in London and those racers are running by, even Brits aren't standing there with their arms crossed going, bloody hell, you suck. I'm not clapping for your ass until you cross the finish line. No, you clap and you cheer people every step of the way. Your life is a marathon, and you have outsourced the single most motivational and important thing that you need to other people. You're waiting for your spouse or your kids or your parents or your colleagues or your friends or your boss to cheer for you and to validate you. I'm sitting here telling you, you have to learn how to validate yourself and cheer for yourself where you are right now, or you're not going to get where you're meant to go.
No, because, that's what we've been, I guess, more recently taught with social media, or certainly encouraged, that unless there's outside validation, you do not exist, which is a terrifying thought, because if you are solely relying on our exterior validation, then when it eventually dissipates or there's a break in it, you're free falling. What are you going to do? So that is a huge problem. But going back one layer, looking at all the judgment and all the past that we lug around, because I recognize that in myself. I'll look in the mirror and I'll conflate my own thoughts about myself with other words spoken from people I've met along the way, or strangers, whatever it might be. And I am, pulling that along in a massive sledge behind me, like every morning. How do we, because everyone's got that. And I'm thinking people at home are going to be like, yeah, I have that. But how are we moving past that? How are we not bringing our whole past and our lump of regret with us each morning? How do we move on? Because, I know obviously sometimes with tricky situations in life, you might have had good intent, but others have still judged you, or you've ended up in a tricky spot. But there will still be times in our past where we acted without good intent, and we know that we did something out of jealousy or cruelty or whatever it might be, of just feeling angry about our own lives. So how do we let that go when we know that good intent wasn't anywhere near that situation? How the hell are we stepping over that massive pile of crap?
Well, I think that, look, I think especially your listeners know that you act out in pain because you didn't know any other way to cope. And so when you can bring empathy and understanding to what happened to you, you can start to understand the behavior. And it's only when you understand the behavior from the past that you can spot it and you can catch it and you can change it, because patterns of behavior repeat unless you break them and replace them. And so one of the reasons why this high five habit, and it's just one of a bazillion habits in this book that we can talk about to address this question. One of the reasons why high-fiving your reflection in the mirror works is because you don't have to think anything. This is the genius of it. So, when it started to work for me, and then I, of course, put a photo on social media on my story, and within an hour, 100 people, men, women, children around the world were high-fiving and tagging themselves. I thought, okay, whoa. First of all, I'm not the only one who's feeling like the world on my shoulders. Okay, that's reassuring. And secondly, maybe this thing isn't that cheesy after all. And so I've spent the last year researching this. And so first, let me explain in addressing your question about how do you get your mind to stop going down the road of beating the shit out of yourself for all the stuff that you did when you were just trying to survive, because that's what you were trying to do. You were just trying to survive. And I have been startled, Fern. I was molested when I was in the 4th grade, and it was a one-time incident. I woke up in the middle of the night at a big family thing with lots of different families, and all the kids were in one room, and there was an older kid on top of me. And it is that moment that my anxiety began. I literally had a fight or flight response, which is all that anxiety is. Anxiety in your body is just an alarm bell going off when your nervous system goes into a sympathetic or an on edge alarm state. And I possummed, I disassociated, I literally left my body. And that next morning I woke up knowing that something was wrong, knowing that something bad had happened. And in that moment, my nervous system was still on alarm. And when I walked downstairs that morning, my mom was cooking breakfast. The kids were all over the kitchen, lots of other moms around. And my mom turned to me and said, "How'd you sleep, honey?" And I froze. And I froze because the kid was sitting at the kitchen table. Now, I knew if I said something, my mother, she's a farm gal. She grew up on a cattle farm. She would literally take that spatula and hit him into next week. Like, there was no concern about my mom. I was concerned about what this person would do. And so my nervous system in that moment got hardwired to be on edge, to be worried about how people react. And I have lived in that state for literally ever since 45 years. And so one of the things that happens, we're going to talk about our nervous system, because there's also a high five you can do to your heart that is profound for any kind of anxiety or trauma that you may be feeling. And we're going to explain that in a minute. But first, I want to explain what some of the world's leading neuroscientists have said about why the high five habit works. When you go to raise your hand in the mirror, and this is how you're going to do it. You can do it right after you listen to this. You can do it tomorrow morning. What I want you to do to make it a habit, first of all, is I want you to do it right after you brush your teeth. Hopefully, we're all brushing our teeth every day. It's a really good habit to have. When you put your toothbrush down, like right on the counter, now we're going to practice the high five. You're going to take a minute and you're just going to look at yourself. And I want you to, in that moment, I want you to set an intention. And the reason why I want you to set an intention as you're with yourself is because there is new research out of Harvard that shows that if you take just a minute in the morning and you think about how you're going to show up today and who you're going to be, and more importantly, what actually matters to you? What game do you want to play that you want to make progress on? Not complete, not win at, just what's one thing you want to inch forward? And how do you need to show up today to really engage in that game that matters to you? It could be something personal, could be something at work. It doesn't matter with your kids. And then once you have that in your mind, you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. And yes, it will feel weird. Yes, it will feel awkward, but I'm going to tell you what's not going to happen. It is neurologically and scientifically impossible to raise your hand and high five your reflection and think, "Gosh, you suck. Boy, you're ugly. Your chin's really pointy. Your jowls, Mel, are starting to look like saddlebags on a pack mule." Like, you can't think those things. You just can't. And here's why. You have spent your lifetime high-fiving other people or raising your hands in celebration with other people. You've done it so many times that the gesture of high-fiving, even by just seeing other people do it in sports matches, it's already encoded. Like, Fern, when somebody high fives you, what are they saying to you?
Well, I think they're celebrating you on a subconscious level and saying, "I see you. Hey." And I think what I'm realizing as you're talking is, and this is so obvious to say, but it's just hit me, is that we're not to underestimate habit, because I think some of the time we're sat there waiting for, quite frankly, an epiphany. There's going to be this moment where I really like myself, or if I get the job, the partner, the thing, then I'm going to like myself. We've got to do the habit bit first to get
Yes.
anywhere near that.
Yes.
And we are all relying on some miraculous, maybe it's because we've been sort of indoctrinated over the years with like the big reality TV shows where, you know, all of a sudden you're celebrated and you look amazing and you're on TV and everyone's cheering at you. And I'm going to have that moment. It's going to happen down the line. This is a habit. This is, like you say, cleaning your bloody teeth. This is a habit we have to do every day. And it's as much as sort of changing your habit can be tiresome. Once you're in a habit, you don't even know you're doing it. I don't think I've got to brush my teeth. You're just doing it. So we can't underestimate habit here.
Yes. And by the way, you already have a habit that we're trying to break, which is you have a habit of ignoring or criticizing yourself.
Yeah.
Just like you're cleaning your teeth, we got to clean your mind of all that bullshit you've been saying for a long time.
But that's empowering, because often we believe it. We think, well, I am just a piece of shit. But it's empowering to know, no, that is a habit that I go to, that I think I'm a piece of shit when X, Y, Z happens. It's not true. That also is a habit. Empowering, both things.
Yes.
Empowering.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And you have friends that have done piece of shit things in their lives.
Yeah.
And you can understand that they did that. They drank, they were addicted, they cheated on people. They, like, whatever they did, they were a bloody asshole. But you can now see that they're trying. You can now see that they're changing and they're working hard, and you can love them through it. I'm here to tell you, you have to make a habit of doing this for yourself every day. And you just said this thing about, I'll be happy when I get that job or I lose that weight. The problem with attaching your happiness and your validation and your support to achieving something is, once you achieve it, you are stuck with the old habit of still hating yourself. And you're now going to need to find something else to achieve in order to prove that you're worthy of it again. You see, I've been an overachiever my whole life because I've equated achieving with being worth something. And when you are an overachiever and you think it's only when you're achieving something that you are worth loving or celebrating, you will be a jealous motherfucker, because everybody else that's succeeding is now competing with you for the love and for the worth that you want. And when you start to actually give yourself the love and the self-validation that you need, even when you're failing, especially when moments are hard, when you're, telling yourself, okay, Rex was an asshole to me last night and I feel like a terrible mother. And you stand there and you're like, you know what? Today I'm just going to show up and I'm going to be compassionate and patient, both with him and with myself. And you raise your hand and you high five yourself. What you're doing in that moment is you're shutting down the criticism. It's an act of defiance to that beatdown that you've been giving yourself. And because this is the coolest part, everybody, because you've been high-fiving everybody else and watching everybody else do it, all the messaging, I believe you, I love you, we got this. You give a teammate a high five or a kid a high five when their attitude is sinking, to basically say, I get it, it's hard, you blew it, but guess what? Pick back up, we're going in, come on, we got this, I got your back, you're not alone here. So it communicates all of that. It's already in your subconscious. So when you go to raise your hand, two things happen. First of all, your nervous system recognizes the raised hand as a celebratory action. And so as you start to repeat this habit, it will start to give you a jolt of energy. This research comes from Dr. Daniel Amen, who, is this world's leading neuroscientist. He also said that the act of high-fiving gives you a drip of dopamine. So if you do this for more than 5 days and you start to push through the awkwardness and you start to push through how weird it feels because it's a new habit and because you're basically silencing judgment, you're going to feel your mood boost because your brain is releasing dopamine because of the subconscious programming associated with high-fiving. And that's not all. This is really cool. So I know you have a lot of parents that listen, and you need to, I know you've already read the study, but if you'll allow me, I want to unpack this because this is mind-blowing. So there was a study that they did with kids, right? Where they wanted to know, what's the best way to motivate a human being through a really challenging situation? And we're all going through a really challenging situation right now with how overwhelming the world is. And they said, we're going to divide kids into 3 groups. And group number 1, we're going to give these kids a very challenging bunch of homework to work through. Super hard. And we're going to do that for all three groups. So these poor kids are toiling away at this challenging stuff. And group number one, the encouragement that they gave these kids was based on the growth and the fixed mindset research from Dr. Carol Dweck. And what we know about this is that the fixed growth praise is basically walking up to somebody and complimenting them about something about them. Hey, you're really smart. Hey, you're a good student. Hey, I love the sweater that you're wearing. Keep on going. Yeah, that's sort of motivating because somebody sees you. The next group got the growth mindset type of praise, which is basically to tell somebody that they're doing a good job working hard. And what we know based on research is when you reward somebody or praise them for their hard work, you feel empowered because you can control your hard work. So you work a little harder. And sure enough, these kids in this second group, Fern, who were told you're working really hard, keep going. Ooh, I love your perseverance. They worked a lot harder than the kids that were told they were smart. But check this out. The third group, the researchers didn't say a word to them, not a word. These kids simply had a researcher walk up to them and high five them. That's it. Those kids who got a high five outworked, had more confidence, had better results, felt better about themselves than the other two groups combined. And the answer is why. And the reason is based on psychology. We all have fundamental emotional needs: to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved and celebrated for the unique human being that we are. When those needs of being seen, heard, and celebrated are met, you feel affirmed, you feel confident, you feel whole. When those needs are not being met, you feel rejected, you feel invisible, you feel disconnected and lost. So a simple high five was affirming that those researchers saw, wow, you're working really hard. Wow, I hear you. You're struggling with this. And wow, I'm going to celebrate you right here in this moment for who you are and how you're showing up and how you're going through. And I'm here to tell you, simply doing this for yourself every single morning and making it a habit and teaching it to your kids, it empowers you in a way that is hard to describe, because for the first time in your life, you are giving yourself what you have been seeking from other people.
This is it.
So, this is kind of my brand of advice. It's got to be incredibly stupid on the surface.
Yeah.
It's got to be so simple. It's really implausible that it works.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start unpacking it, it has to have a crazy bananas amount of scientific proof and real life proof in people's lives to prove why it works.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the story first behind the high five habit, because I did not set out and go like, oh, okay, I've written the 5-second rule book. I need to come up with another 5. I have been toiling away with what book to write for nearly 5 years.
Yes.
So it's been 5 years since I've had a book in print. And I had this random morning where there's a lot going on in my life. I'm not going to get into it because it's a boring story, but I was just having a really hard time in my life. And I woke up, got out of bed, I made my bed like I always do. I walked into the bathroom, I'm standing there brushing my teeth, and I catch my reflection in the mirror. And my first thought is, God, you look like hell. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I know women in particular can relate to this, but what a lot of people don't realize is you guys are incredibly hard on yourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I go, God, you look like hell, I start then cataloging all of the things that are wrong with my appearance. I'm like, your gray hair is coming in, you've got stripes on your neck, one of your boobs is lower than the other, you look exhausted. And then as soon as you have a negative thought or a self-criticism, it's sort of like lint in a dryer. Once you start collecting it, it just keeps on collecting it. So now I'm thinking not about how horrible I look or how tired I look. Now I start thinking about all the stuff I need to do. I start going, oh my gosh, I got up a little too late and I've got a Zoom call in 8 minutes. I don't even have a bra on yet. The dog needs to be walked. And I could feel my energy going down. Like I just felt the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed, uncertain. It doesn't even matter what was going on in my life at that time, because I think it's a universal feeling to feel overwhelmed by your life at times.
Yes.
And so here I am, a motivational speaker.
Unmotivated.
Unmotivated, uncaffeinated, no bra on, standing there in my underwear with my dog at my feet. I don't know what came over me. But as cheesy as it sounds, I just raised my hand and gave the tired, haggard woman in the mirror a high five. Mm-hmm. And it didn't change my life, like right then and there, but something shifted. Like I felt a little lighter. I felt like I wasn't alone. Mm-hmm. I felt like, okay, you know, this moment in your life is hard, but you can do this, Mel. And I went on with my day. So the second day, I woke up, and this is when things started to really kind of churn in my mind. The first thing that I noticed was this. So I wake up, Lewis, and I make my bed. And I realized I was looking forward to that moment in the mirror where I was going to see myself. Now, look, I'm 52 years old. I will probably have a hot flash during the middle of this interview at some point. I'm a lot older than you.
Just don't eat lobster.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know. I had a really allergic reaction the last time we were together. Wow. But I have spent the first 45 years of my life either criticizing the woman in the mirror or ignoring her. And this was the first time that I could remember that I was actually looking forward to seeing myself. Sort of like, you know, when I was coming here today, you and I are very good friends. As I was walking into the building, I'm feeling excited to see you. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I was feeling excited to see myself. Like, I'm not like, yeah, because I got a lot of crap going on in my life. But I felt a little bit like I'm about to see a friend. And so that second morning, I high-fived myself again. And again, I feel something shift. I feel just a little lightness in the mood, and I go on with my day. So the third morning, I do it again. And again, like lightness. And so I keep doing it. A couple weeks go by. And now I'm starting to feel a little bit of momentum. And I'm really enjoying it. I have no idea what the hell is going on. I haven't even done this in front of my husband, Chris, yet, because let's be honest. Standing in front of a mirror.
High-fiving yourself.
Yeah, like, come on, how pathetic does it get? You're like, is your life that bad? So I snap a photo of myself. I've got my retainer in. I got bed head. Like, I'm not looking glamorous. I did not expect this to be the photo that would ignite a movement. Mm-hmm. And within an hour, I posted on my story on Instagram. Within an hour, at least 100 people tagged me. All over the world. People high-fiving the mirror with their kids, people on a submarine high-fiving it in the military, people MMA, like just, and I thought, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not the only one that needs a little boost in the morning. Maybe I'm not the only one who feels alone. Maybe I'm not the only one that is missing a sense of encouragement and control and confidence in an overwhelming moment in my life. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something here. And then the messages started to come in. Whoa, Mel, like I have been using this for 5 days. This woman wrote to us, Lewis. She's had body dysmorphia for 20 years. Has not been able to look at herself in the mirror. 5 days of doing this high five. And she said, I can look at myself and I even see beyond the body. I see the person. And I can grin. Wow. We had a woman who wrote to us who said that she was in a domestic violence shelter. She had escaped a very abusive relationship. She had seen me talking at our friend Jamie Kern-Lima's event. She started doing the high five thing. She DMs us and she says that, you know, I have childhood trauma. I've just been in a physically abusive relationship. I've lost everything. I'm in a domestic violence shelter. What this high five in the mirror is teaching me is that I still have myself. And so that was when I said, I got to figure out what's going on. Right. And I started to unpack the research. And the research around this simple ritual, I love that you called it a ritual because I want people to habit stack this with brushing their teeth. Right. This is so life-changing. It's so simple. The science here is like, you can't believe it. And once I unpack it, you're going to be like, I can't believe how cool this thing is. Right.
So what's the science say?
Okay, so the science. Let's start with the first thing. So the first thing is that when you first try it, okay, you will not be able to raise your hand and high-five yourself and be like, you suck, Mel. Or today's going to be terrible. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that for your entire life, you have given other people high fives. So when you give a high five or you receive one, what is a high five? Just the gesture alone. What does this communicate if we do this to each other? We high five.
Nice job, good work. You're doing amazing. Yeah, keep it up.
Yeah, I believe in you. I love you. Let's go. If you blow a shot and you got to get back in the game, a high five's like shake it off. You can win.
Yes.
And so all of that lifetime of high fiving other people and the messaging associated with it is programmed right here in your subconscious brain.
Right.
There's a field of study called neurobics, which is about...
Neurobics.
I know, I didn't make that up.
Sure.
It's interesting. Physical movement plus new neurological activity. When you marry an unexpected physical movement with new neurological activity, it's the fastest way to forge new neural pathways in your brain.
Okay.
Okay? We know the example, you've covered this on your show, of brushing with the wrong hand and thinking positive thoughts. And the reason why that works is because when you're brushing with the wrong hand, it's unexpected, your brain doesn't expect it, so instead of drifting off about the fact that you need to walk the dog, you have to focus, so your prefrontal cortex is engaged. You're not used to high-fiving your own reflection, so it's an unexpected physical movement that then activates all of the positive programming in your subconscious. So when you raise your hand and you high-five your tired self, Lewis, what happens is all of the messaging with this, the high five, I believe in you, I love you, I celebrate you, you got this, keep going, come on. It actually fuses with your freaking reflection.
Wow.
It's impossible to criticize yourself.
Yeah.
Your brain won't allow it because it's not wired that way when you're making that motion.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
It's hard to say you suck. You don't matter at anything. It's hard.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. And so this lifetime of positive subconscious programming associated with high-fiving other people gets fused with your own reflection in this ritual. That's just the beginning, okay? Wow. That's just the beginning. The second thing that starts to happen that's really interesting. So, we've had a ton of people do this, obviously, around the world. Super easy idea. It's spreading around the world. We start interviewing people about what's going on, and this is what we notice. We notice that one of two things happen when you first try this. So here's how I want everybody to try it. You're going to go into the bathroom and do it before or after you brush your teeth. And that's important because I want you to make this a ritual that's part of your morning routine. And so we need to stack it with something you already do. And you're going to stand there for a minute and I want you to look at yourself. Now that right alone, most of us don't do. Look at yourself. Right. And I want you to just think about the day ahead. This is based on more research. So recent studies show from the University of Florida that if you take just a minute and you set an intention about how the day is going to go, about who you're going to be, how you're going to show up, what's the one thing that kind of matters to you to really make make progress on, if you just kind of set that intention, who am I going to be today? How am I going to show up today? Even if it's a hard day, how are you going to show up? And then you raise your hand and you seal it. Research shows just setting the intention alone changes your mood. It boosts your productivity. It increases your ability to make an impact on other people. And so when you seal it with this high five, it becomes this ritual of setting an intention for the day and also silencing the critic and reprogramming the default setting about how you see yourself, whether or not you believe in yourself. And you leave that bathroom feeling like the wind is at your back. Now, when people do this for the first time, so you're going to stand there tomorrow and you're going to go, okay, Mel Robbins and Lewis, geez, I'm sitting here, brush my teeth. Okay, this is stupid. You're going to just start rejecting it. I guarantee you. This is the coolest stuff you're going to have the biggest resistance to. And so for those of you that just raise your hand and do it, you're going to immediately be like, why have I not been doing this? It feels good to be encouraged and supported.
To high five yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why have I not had my own back? Why do I stand here and criticize myself? Why do I allow this moment every single morning to be a moment where life takes over and I drift into autopilot? Why am I not taking this moment for me to build a partnership with myself?
Yeah.
The second group of people, and this is the larger group,
Right.
resist it. And this is really interesting. And the reason why you resist it, and the reason why it feels weird, is because you believe you're not worthy of support or celebration.
From yourself or from others?
Period.
Wow. Why do we think we're not worthy of celebration?
Well, for people that grew up in a chaotic, violent, or whatever household, it was your lived experience.
Yeah.
I think that for many of us, we look back on our lives and, the cognitive negative bias has us focus on the things that went wrong. Mm-hmm. And so you begin to tell yourself a story about your life that is basically a pyramid of all the things that you regret, of all the things that you wish had done over, of all the things that you don't like about yourself. And so you drag that with you into the bathroom every morning.
Yeah.
And you stare at the mirror and you see somebody that has screwed up. You see somebody who's not where you're meant to be. You see somebody who doesn't have the number on the scale or the car that you wanted or the job that you had hoped for or the relationship that you had always dreamed about. And so standing there, you believe you're not worthy of support or celebration. And it's this deep belief. We talk a lot in the personal development space of, oh, I'm not good enough. I actually think that's the polite thing that people say. I believe that people have a much more horrible way of talking to themselves.
Like what?
I can't say it on TV, but I can say it on the internet. I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I'm worthless. No one will ever love me. I screwed up my life. I'm a failure. I'll never amount to anything. Mm-hmm. It's too late. I'm a bad person. I think people actually say this to themselves.
Yeah. And they say it over and over again.
Yes.
Daily.
Yes. And just like ruts on a dirt road, it starts to wear in your brain and it becomes the familiar path. And so you stand in front of the mirror and, I'm telling you, raise your hand and let all that positive programming you've given to everybody else. We are amazing at celebrating everybody else. We cheer for our favorite sports teams. We buy tickets to, our favorite musicians. We throw birthday parties for people. We take on extra work for our colleagues. We help our family members out and our friends out. But when it comes to supporting ourselves, we don't know how to do it.
No.
In fact, there's a lot of people that think it's selfish to put yourself first, or that you're arrogant if you do.
Right.
I'm here to tell you it is essential to your well-being, to your fulfillment, to your happiness, all of it. So if you're feeling resistance, you're either going to feel it because you already have a deep story that you don't deserve it because of your track record, your past, because of what's happening in your life. Or you're going to feel resistance because you have been trained to believe that you only deserve that kind of stuff when you're winning. Like if I don't have that car, I don't get the high five. If I didn't get that promotion, I didn't deserve it. If I am not in a loving relationship, I don't deserve to be celebrated because I'm not actually achieving or doing the things that warrant that. I'm here to tell you, I'm on a mission to make every human being realize that if you wake up in the morning and you're breathing and you're standing in front of that mirror and you have survived the stuff you have survived and you are still waking up and trying to do better, you not only deserve a high five, you need it. Because what we also know based on the research is that empowerment, support, kindness, love, celebration, it is the single most motivating force on the planet. Tough love is a bunch of baloney. What really fuels people, particularly when you're going through a challenge, is feeling celebrated, seen, and supported. And the research bears it out.
Yeah, I can think of the times when I was on sports teams where I had great, loving, encouraging coaches. It made me want to work harder from a more energized place, an abundant energy. But when I had the coaches that would just degrade you and put you down and call you names in front of your teammates and make you feel bad, it would drive me to try to be better, but it was always harder. And I never felt satisfied. I never felt fulfilled. I always felt like even when I accomplished something, it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And then I repeat that pattern. Okay, I'm going to accomplish, but it's not enough to feel loved. And so let me keep accomplishing in order to feel loved, but I still don't love myself because it's not good enough.
Yeah.
So let me go for the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because I have a photo on my phone that my therapist told me to do this exercise in 8 months ago.
see.
which was a strategy for me to reclaim the love for myself. So I have a photo of my childhood self. I don't know if people can see this
Look
on
how
YouTube.
cute you are.
But a photo of me, this is probably when I was like 5 or 6, maybe I was 7. But something that I've tried to do and really been integrating in my life is to reconnect with the child where I felt like I stopped loving myself.
Okay, so let's talk about this right now.
Yeah.
You ready? So let me
Yeah.
talk about this image. So let's talk about the Lewis this age,
Right.
standing in front of a mirror.
Yeah. And what I do is I stand in front of myself as a child. I
Yes.
imagine myself, but to do it, imagine looking at the mirror as yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm trying to say is when you were this age and you
Yeah.
stood in front of the mirror, you had a totally different relationship with yourself because you still loved yourself.
Yeah.
You still thought
Exactly.
that you were a great kid and you wanted all the things that the adult Lewis wants.
Right.
You want to feel loved. You want to feel seen. You want to feel heard. You want to feel like you matter. And you, in seeing yourself when you were this age, felt those things for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And somewhere along the way, you lost
Correct.
it. Yeah, yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say is that when you stand in front of this mirror, exactly what Lewis is talking about, when you've got coaches that scream at you and degrade you and you know, sure, it makes you run faster, but it leaves its mark.
It does.
It leaves its mark. And so there's research. So let me talk about why this is so motivating, particularly because so many of your audience love sports, right? So they did a study where they looked at NBA teams. And what they wanted to take a look at was, does fist bumps, backpack, some high fives make a difference in a team winning? Touch, right?
Didn't they do like a 2020 special in this or something? I
don't know, but if they did, I need to watch it.
Yeah.
But so like the power of touch, but I think it's deeper. It's the power of encouragement.
Interesting.
And so what they found is that in the study, at least in the years that they looked at, you could take a look at the teams that made it to the championships in the NBA, go all the way back to the preseason, and those were the teams that had the most number of fist bumps and back pats and high fives. Yep.
Wow.
And the same was true about the teams that were the lowest in the league at the end of the season. They had the least amount of fist bumps, high fives, and touch. Why?
So they're the least encouraging.
Correct. Those sorts of gestures build trust and partnership. I'm telling you, when you stand in front of a mirror and ignore yourself, you're like the losing NBA team.
Interesting.
Selfish, on your own, isolated. You're not in partnership with the person you're staring at in the mirror. You don't have your own back because you're ignoring yourself.
Yes.
There's another study, and this one is, I think, even more powerful. So they did this study where they wanted to know what's the most motivating thing to help somebody get through a really big challenge. The researchers divide kids into 3 groups, right? And they gave each of the groups of kids very challenging problems to work through. And they wanted to measure, okay, how resilient, how long would they work, what were their attitudes like? And then they measured it based on, well, what form of praise or support are we going to give each one of these groups? And let's see what's the most empowering.
Interesting.
First group gets what we know to be the fixed mindset stuff. The praise was all verbal praise, and it was simply about a trait. Lewis, you are so smart. Lewis, you are a super student, praising something that is just sort of a compliment about you. The second group of students working on a challenging problem got praise based on work ethic, so something in their control. Oh, Lewis, you're working so hard. Lewis, you got such good perseverance. Lewis, you're really like just grinding away over there. Good job. Those guys did better than Lewis, you're smart. Lewis, hardworking, better. The third group, the researchers simply walked up, did not say a word, and high-fived the kid.
Really?
That's it. That's it. That group, literally, exponentially, more motivated, worked longer, worked through more challenging problems. Now, here's the big question. Why? Why would a simple high five with no verbal praise be more empowering and motivating and inspiring and develop more resilience and confidence and motivation inside somebody? And the reason why is this. A high five affirms your deepest fundamental needs. It's not just a gesture. When you high five somebody, particularly somebody who has either blown the free throw shot or is working on something difficult or going through a really hard time, when you high five them, you're saying, I see you. When you high five them during a challenge, you actually are acknowledging, I know this is hard. so the person feels heard. And because it's one-to-one, and you have to be really intentional. Like if you and I go to high five, like we have to focus on it. That was a good one.
That was good.
If you miss it, what do?
You got to do it again.
Correct. So there's an intentionality behind it, and that makes you feel like you're being affirmed as a unique individual.
Interesting.
And so all of those things are in that one gesture. Now, it goes even more. So there's even more here. So I was talking to our buddy, Dr. Daniel Amen, right? And so one of the world's leading experts on brains. He's got like 60,000 brain scans.
I think it's like 120,000.
Oh, is it at this point?
Something crazy, yeah.
So he was so excited about the high five habit. He completely geeked out. He's like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. He's like, yes, neurobics, yes, 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 yes. So he said, let me tell you what else is going on, Mel. And I'm like, really? There's more? He said, yeah. He said, you know how when you do it, you said you felt like a little kind of boost in your mood. He said, well, there are two things going on there. He said, first of all, when you cross a finish line in a race, what do?
Put your hands up.
Yeah. What do you do when your favorite team scores?
High-five someone.
Yeah, you high-five somebody. What do you do at a musical concert? Yay! What do? You're raising your hand in celebration when you high-five somebody or fist bump them or put your arm around them. That raised arm gesture in a positive sense triggers your nervous system to tingle with celebration. It's the energy of celebration, even if you're going through something difficult. And even more, you get a dopamine drip when you do this. And so part of the reason why you feel this kind of shift in your mood and you feel a little bit of like, oh, okay, I can face this, I can do this, I got this, is because of the dopamine, it's because of the nervous system, and it's because of all of this positive programming associated with that gesture. Isn't that crazy?
That's powerful. It's powerful. I mean, so what does someone do, though, if they just constantly have the negative self-talk in their mind that they're no good? Do they go in front of the mirror, every 10 minutes and do this?
No.
Or is there another strategy behind the negative self-talk?
Well, okay. So first things first, definitely make this high five in the mirror a habit, okay? So start practicing it. Give it 5 to 10 days and start to see what happens. The second thing that you can do with negative self-talk, okay, is you need to start to interrupt it. So the thing about negative self-talk is that it is typically something you've engaged in since you were yay high. And in addition to it being wired into your brain, it is also something that can get triggered by your nervous system in stressful situations. And so the first step, and we can talk more about the filter in your brain and how the filter in your brain is causing you to stay stuck in a lot of this negative self-talk and how to use your mind to help you. But the first step is you got to do the awful part of getting self-aware of what the voice is saying. And the way that you do that, there's a couple techniques that you can use to create what researchers or psychologists call objectivity. You want to separate yourself from the voice. So you can do what Lewis is doing. He's writing down right now in a journal. You can keep just a little notebook with you, and you can kind of catalog when your attitude tanks. And what are you actually saying to yourself? Okay.
So should we write down all the things we're saying?
You could.
Negative about ourselves?
You can. I personally do it this way. I start to notice when I feel down, or I start to notice when my energy drops. And then I tune into what I'm thinking about. And if it's negative, I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I literally notice, oh, you're sitting there thinking you're a bad person again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that somebody's mad at you again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that you screw everything up again. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that that nothing ever works out for you. Oh, you're sitting there thinking that you've blown it. Interesting. And then I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I go, I'm not thinking about that. That's the most basic technique to use, because what I want you to do, since this is like operating on autopilot, it's encoded right here. When you're not really thinking, this is what's running, kind of like the soundtrack of your life. When you just start to notice that you have a thought that's not helping you, you can't control that it popped up, but guess what you can do? You can smack it down. And so I use the 5-second rule, which we've talked about a lot on your show. Count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The counting backwards awakens your prefrontal cortex. It gives you a moment of control. And then the way to build distance, Lewis, is say, I'm not thinking about that. And here's why. You're so used to thinking this way, I can't just say, stop thinking you're fat and start thinking that you love your body. It's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
So you've got to go, oh, there I am. I'm trashing the way that I look. I'm telling myself that I'm overweight. I look like shit. I'm hideous. Nobody's going to love me. Be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about that. It's an act of defiance. See, I want you to go from these negative thought patterns to a more positive, empowering, high five attitude. Because if you continue to live in, I'm fat, I'm unworthy, no one's going to love me, I've screwed up my life, that will be your life.
Right.
And the trick on this is, I'm not saying change your thoughts and unicorns appear. I'm saying change your thoughts so you stop the 24/7 beatdown.
Yeah.
And learn how to lift yourself up so that you can face the things that are going on in your life and so that you can take the actions that you need to take to change your life. Because the reason why you're not changing is not because you're not capable. It's not because of the trauma or your past or anything else. It's because of the beatdown. That's why you're not changing.
Yeah, it's draining.
It's draining. It's demoralizing. It is, and by the way, if you constantly are like, I'm unlovable, I'm worthy, I'm this, I'm that, why on earth would you feel motivated or do you think you deserve to change? If that's the thing in your mind. It doesn't work. And so pay attention. When you feel your energy go negative, be like, oh, okay, what am I, oh, whoa, that's disgusting. 5, 4, 3, I'm not thinking about that. You don't have to insert anything else. Let's just practice shutting it the hell up.
Right.
The second thing you can do is once you kind of get good at interrupting it, I want you to name, like, let's turn it into a character. So I did this with our son, Oakley, when he was struggling pretty profoundly with anxiety when he was in the 5th grade. He named his anxiety Oliver. And then we asked him to describe Oliver. And Oliver was like this pimply-faced kid that, what is that, the Diary of the Wimpy Kid kind of bully-looking kid? And whenever the negative worries and stuff would come up, he would you could literally hear him go, Oliver, shut up. And it is the ability, what's happening when you name it and picture the person, is that you're able to detach yourself from that voice in your mind that's talking. Because that voice is typically a caregiver that either talked to you that way or talked to themselves that way, or some bully or some trauma experience or some nasty coach that beat this into your head. It's from somebody else. And so we want you to separate yourself so you can be like, oh, that's what Oliver sounds like. That's not actually how I want to talk to myself.
Right.
And so identifying it, interrupting it, and then you can get into the really incredible magic of rewiring your brain to work for you.
Yeah, I think Ethan Kross, who's a psychologist out of the University of Michigan, has a book called Chatter, which is about all the different psychological strategies for eliminating the negative self-talk and improving the quality of your mind. And he says, start coaching yourself just like you would have a great coach coaching you. Have someone like a character in your mind coaching you, celebrating you with your self-talk to help you kind of shift out of that by interrupt it, then coach yourself.
What would Lewis say to me? What would Mel say to me?
Yeah, exactly.
And here's the tricky part of this. So the tricky part of this is that I personally think most mantras are also complete garbage. And the reason why I say that is because you don't freaking believe them.
Right.
So if you think you're worthless, you're never going to be able to stand in front of a mirror and change your life by going, I'm worthy. Because your brain's like, No, you're not. We've been talking about this for your life. You're not worthy. You want me to show you something? So you have to interrupt it. And if you're going to try to replace it, what you need to do are two things. Number one, you have got to come up with, I should have called it pathetic mantra because it would have been easier to remember. In the book, I called it a meaningful mantra. We should just call it a pathetic mantra. You need to come up with something that's like, okay. You know, like if you're really like bad and you think you're a horrible person, like don't make your mantra, I'm amazing. Make your mantra like, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
something simple.
Yeah, you can believe that, right? You can believe, I'm trying, you know, I'm not meaning to screw up. I'm doing the best I can. Like that I believe.
Yeah.
And that's better than, boy,
I'm the best in the world right now.
Yeah, no, you're never going to believe that.
Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever. Like, for example, if you struggle with health and weight and stuff, it's probably going to be hard for you to stand in front of a mirror and be like, I love my body, because you've been rejecting it. So instead, look at yourself in the mirror and use a meaningful mantra. I deserve to feel healthy.
Right.
And I'm going to treat myself in a way that proves it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's different. It's different because it's believable. The only other thing that will change the way that you think is behavioral activation therapy. So there's a lot of the tools in this book that are grounded as a baseline in the body of research around behavioral activation therapy, which I know you talk about all the time on the show, which is basically act like the person you want to become.
Right.
If you want to be more like Lewis, act like Lewis. Follow his morning routine. Take his advice. Interrupt the garbage, Oliver, in your head. 5, 4, 3. I'm not talking to you, Oliver. What would Lewis say to me? How would Lewis talk to Lewis? And start to act like the person you want to become, and something interesting happens. And this is why the high five works, by the way, because it is an action. You are acting like somebody who believes in and loves themselves.
Yeah.
That's why it works.
Move into motion. Don't just think only, but move and act.
So when you see yourself, you know, we always talk about positive morning routines. Let's talk about negative ones, okay? Because your negative patterns are the reason why you have horrible self-talk.
Right.
Like when I was in law school, I hated my life. My anxiety was out of control. I was out of control. I hated law school. And so my behavior actually reflected my state of mind. I would wake up hungover. I would immediately think, oh my God, I'm late. I would then reach for a cigarette and light it. Then I would run around the apartment getting dressed and trying to find everything because nothing was organized. I would then quickly drive to Dunkin' Donuts, even though I had no time, to stop for a coffee. I'd get a big old coffee with 4 sugars and 2 creams, smoking another cigarette on the way, speeding my whole way there. Then I would sit in class, be panic-stricken about being called on. Same thing again. Then I would sit at lunch, pick at a salad, gossip with friends, avoid the homework. Then I would go to the library, procrastinate forever. Then I would drive home, split a bottle of wine with my roommate, fall asleep, wake up, repeat. When you see somebody's actions, you can typically predict just how bad they're trapped in their mind.
Absolutely.
But I think we all are. I mean, I think even people that have healthy habits don't have a healthy relationship with themselves. That your self-talk is ground zero. Because how you talk to yourself, what you think about yourself when you look in the mirror, that sort of default setting in your mind, geez Louise, I mean, it makes me really sad, honestly. I gave my first speech in 2 years because of the pandemic yesterday in Salt Lake. And there was a book line. And even though everybody had masks and they were 6 feet away, you could see the pain in people's eyes, the isolation, the sadness, the overwhelm, the feeling of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think that people are feeling way more uncertain and afraid than they're actually saying right now. That the sustained amount of change that we've been having to manage, it's too much. You know, it's a lot. And if you stand in front of the mirror and you can't see somebody that's worth supporting through this, you're just going to continue to go down. Because the one person that you spend your whole life with is you.
Yes.
And this is the relationship you need to be working on. Like you want to be loved, you better learn how to love yourself. You want to feel worthy, stop looking for it out there and treat yourself like you're worthy. How do you do that? Well, by pushing through the resistance and raising your, like if you can't freaking high five your reflection,
Right.
You can't do that. How the hell are you going to make things happen in your life if you don't think you are worthy of support and celebration, particularly when life is hard?
Yeah, how you gonna believe that other people are going to do that for you as well? If you can't do it for yourself, why would other people?
Well, actually, this is why people's relationships don't work out. Because you're looking outside yourself for the things you actually need.
For validation.
Correct. You are chasing people and seeking validation in romantic relationships. And that will end when you can stand in front of that mirror and validate yourself. When you build yourself up, when you support yourself, you show up totally differently for everybody else. When you know that you can have your own back, you're not going to be looking for the validation from your boss or your friends or all these other things. People have problems with boundaries because they can't look themselves in the eye. So how the hell are they going to look somebody else in the eye and say, actually, this doesn't work for me?
Okay, so now I have to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of people
Yes.
watching and listening are probably thinking, whoa, rock bottom? What? So can you share the story of what happened?
Which one? Like, there's literally like 15 of them. You want the one where my husband and I found ourselves nearly $1 million in debt?
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody listening in your audience can relate to this because it's a story of entrepreneurship gone horribly wrong. And what happened is my husband got laid off from a corporate job. He hated what he had been doing, and he came home and said, that's it. I'm not going to go back to work. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, we've been married for about 13 years. Is there a trust fund that I'm aware of? Because I don't know how you plan on paying bills or we plan on surviving without you working. I mean, we're both working. I don't know if you don't understand math here, but without you working. And he was like, no, I'm sick of it. I am going to pursue my dream. And I'm like, your dream? What is your dream? And he said, I've always wanted to be in the restaurant business. And I looked at him and I was like, restaurant business? Dude, I grew up working in restaurants. You've only been in the front of the house. The one thing that will cure you from wanting to be in the restaurant business is actually working in one. Well, I got to give Chris credit. He fought with me about it. And we came up with a timeline that he had 6 months to write the business plan, to raise a little bit of money, to start earning a little something. And if he did not do that within 6 months, he had to go back and get a corporate job. And so he did it. He and his best friend wrote a business plan. They raised a little bit of money. He got things done by that 6-month mark. And he and his best friend opened a small little pizza restaurant right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. The first one was a home run. And so we were complete morons. And we cashed out our entire life savings. We took literally the college funds, the 401ks, cashed them all out. We took out a home equity line because that's basically free money when you own a house. We maxed out every credit card and we shoved it into this restaurant business.
Wow.
Because what could possibly go wrong in the restaurant business? Well, this was 2007. And what they don't tell you about the restaurant business as well is that 1 out of the first 4 locations always fail. And that happened to be the second location. And so all of a sudden the housing crisis hits. The housing recession hits the United States. We're upside down. We are $800 grand in debt. We have 3 kids under the age of 10. Chris is scrambling with his best friend to try to fix this. I couldn't pay for groceries, you guys. Nowhere in my life plan or my vision board was an image of a 40-year-old drunk, unemployed woman who could not get out of bed. But that became my life. I became somebody I didn't recognize because when the you-know-what hit the fan in my life, and it happens to all of us, I rose to the occasion like a high-functioning adult. I basically drank myself into the ground, and then every time I saw my husband, I wanted to kill him and I screamed at him. And, funny, those 2 things didn't really work to solve the problems, but I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And this is the thing that I talk about all the time, and I know you guys talk about this too. Knowing what you need to do is the easy part. Look, I knew I needed a job. I knew Chris was trying his best. I knew that I needed to stop screaming at him, and I knew I needed to lay off the bourbon, and I needed to get the kids on the bus, and I needed to stop isolating myself, and I needed to exercise. But I couldn't make myself do it. I was consumed with fear and anger and frustration, and I was procrastinating, and I was self-loathing, and I just was stuck. Yeah. And every night I would tell myself, okay, tomorrow morning, it's the new you. Tomorrow morning, you're going to change. Tomorrow morning, you got to be nice. Tomorrow morning, you got to look for a job. And I couldn't make myself do it. And we all have experienced this. And so luckily, what happened is totally crazy and random. But what happened is I was watching TV one night and I was having that pep talk with myself. And I said, that's it. Like tomorrow morning, Mel, you cannot hit the snooze button 4 times. You've got to get your butt out of bed and you got to get these kids on the bus. You got to face the day. And all of a sudden this rocket ship launches across the TV screen. And it gives me this crazy idea. What if I launched myself out of bed? What if I moved so fast I wasn't in the bed when the anxiety hit? That was the whole genesis of the 5-second rule. Maybe if I move fast, I'd beat the anxiety. So the next morning, the alarm goes off. And just like NASA launches a rocket, as dumb as it sounds, I started counting backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I got up. And I have to tell you, it's 13 years later. And I often stop and think how close I was to not doing it. When that alarm went off, it was a Tuesday in February outside of Boston, Massachusetts in 2008. I remembered the countdown thing, but I immediately started thinking how dumb it was. I didn't care. It was dark. What difference is it going to make? But I made a decision, for whatever reason, to just start counting. If I hadn't done that, my life would have gone in a totally different direction. I'd be divorced. I'd probably be an alcoholic. My family would have been torn apart. I would have lost everything that matters to me. And I say all the time, and it's true, you are one decision away from a different life. And right now, there are habits that everybody has that are keeping you trapped in thinking patterns or behavior patterns or leadership patterns or management patterns or whatever, relationship patterns that no longer serve you. And so I went on to use this little dumb countdown thing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, as a tool to push myself through the fear and procrastination that was holding me back from doing what I needed to do. And the truth is, I never intended to tell anybody about this thing. And Blake, you mentioned the TED Talk. That TEDx talk, that was the first TEDx conference that was ever put on. So there was almost no training.
You
and I was asked
said
to
it was a 20-minute panic attack, which to me, I cannot.
Oh, yeah.
Do that. I cannot. Because I memorized
it's
I
true.
know the whole speech. I know Kendall and the Barbies. Like, it just comes to me randomly. Like, that was
Thank God I had a presentation. I forgot about Kendall and the Barbies. The presentation kept me in the room. I mean, I literally had never given a speech on a stage in my life. I was cast to be at that event because I had changed my job so many times, and the curator knew somebody I went to Dartmouth with, and they were like, "Oh, Mel, my God, she's changed her job a bazillion times. Call her." And so I give this speech. We do one rehearsal. I step out there the next morning. There's 800 people in the audience. You can see a minute into that thing, Blake, I've got a neck rash the size of a grapefruit from the anxiety on my chest. I'm speaking 1,000,000 miles a minute. And at minute 19, I forget how to end it. That's what happened. And I say, oh, by the way, there's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. The moment you have an instinct to act, you got to move within 5 seconds or your brain kills it. I was so disassociated from anxiety, I gave out my email address on that stage, and then I leave. And I say to Chris, my husband who's backstage, I am never giving a speech again in my life. That was horrible. Horrible. A year goes by, a year, and I am just in my life, and they put it online. I don't even know it's online. Another year goes by. So now we're in late 2013. I'm still just in my life. We still have liens on the house. We are still barely making the ends meet, you guys. And by liens, I mean like 600 grand. I haven't given a speech yet. I'm just trying to pay my bills. I'm just doing my life, using my little 5-second rule in secret. And all of a sudden people start reaching out to me. Hey, I saw that thing in San Francisco. And I'd message them back on Facebook. Oh, were you in San Francisco in the audience? No, it's online. I'm like, it's online. And so another year goes by. And I start speaking for free at women's conferences. Because I didn't know you get paid for this kind of thing. And then somebody comes up to me, thank God, at the Pennsylvania Women's Conference. I'll never forget this. I owe this woman so much gratitude. She walks up to me and says, hey, Mel, I was just in your session. It was great. And, I was in a breakout session. There were maybe 500 people in the room. It's nothing like what we all do today. And so she comes up to me and she's like, I was a speaker. And I wanted to know if I could ask you a question, speaker to speaker. And I said, sure. And she said, get this, you two. Did you get your check yet? And I look at her and I say, check? You got paid for this? And she looked at me and said, oh my God, I just assumed you had. I was just on a panel. I figured you do this for a living. And I thought, what kind of a moron am I? I didn't even know what to charge. And so here's a piece of advice to steal. I don't know where I came up with this, but this was like fast thinking. I said, okay, that's it. The next time somebody calls, when they ask me if I want to speak, I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to myself and put myself in pause. And then I'm going to say, what's your budget? And then I'm going to wait for the answer. And then I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to pause. And then I'm going to say, normally I'm double. And then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a guy named Darren Powell. And this is a whole nother backstory that I won't even go into that just tells me over and over and over again, there is no question in my mind that all of this is divine intervention, that it is what's meant to happen. And the people that come into my life that have been it's like all part of the map of my life. These are all things that were supposed to connect at the right time. And Darren makes a phone call, and he had been in the speaking business for a couple decades, but he had been out of it for a little bit. And he makes a phone call because his wife sees my TEDx talk going viral on Facebook. I'm the first call he makes in over 2 years back in the speaking business. And I get my little line out. Yeah, I think I'm available. What's your budget? He said $10,000. I dropped the frickin' phone. Like, I had no idea that's the kind of money that even somebody that's just like, what? That was 3 months of our mortgage. We still had $500,000 lien on the house. And so I did then the second thing that was the smartest thing I've ever done in business. I took almost half of that money because I had such severe imposter syndrome that I thought, I'm not worth that. I don't even know what that looks like. And I hired a graphic designer to help me make a really fancy presentation. And then I practiced like my life depended upon it. And that was one of those moments in life where I showed up and I met the moment. I just slayed it. And Darren came up to me and, basically said, I've been doing this for 20 years. And you're not only a natural, you're one of the best I've ever seen. And that's due to the practice. It's due to the practice. It's due to the adrenaline. It's due to being at the right place at the right time with the right message that resonates, not knowing any different of how to do it. And the rest is history. He's run the business ever since. I wouldn't be in business without him. And I have gone on to have incredible success and pay down those liens and restore our savings and, change millions of lives by sharing this simple tool that has profound science, simply counting backwards. It's a cheat code for your brain. It switches off the basal ganglia, which is where all your subconscious self-sabotaging patterns are, and it awakens your prefrontal cortex, which gives you a moment of immediate control. And, here's the cool thing. I can tell you just a bazillion ways that people have used the 5-second rule. The thing I'm the most proud of is that we know of 111 people at this point who have stopped themselves from attempting suicide by counting backwards and asking for help. And I can tell you that it is one of the most incredible things that you'll ever learn and use. But sitting here today, I am even more sure of the fact that this new tool, the High Five Habit, something that I also created, guys, during a horrible moment in my business and my life, another moment where life was punching me in the face, that is going to sound just like the 5-second rule. This is my brand of empowerment. If it sounds stupid and it has science behind it, that's a Mel Robbins tool. That's my brand right there. Sounds dumb. Actually, it's pretty smart. This goes even deeper because, the 5-second rule, it can make you rich because you're not going to make money by thinking. It can turn you into a servant-based leader or make you more agile in your thinking and decision-making. It can help you take risks and be more innovative. It can help you be honest with yourself and surround yourself with talent when you realize that you, the CEO, can't do everything. It will help you stay motivated. It'll help you get boundaries. It'll help you be super productive. It really will. But there's one thing it won't do. It won't help you with the self-loathing that you have. It won't help you with the relentless beatdown that you give yourself. It won't help you with the fact that as an entrepreneur, you obsess about everything that's going wrong instead of creating momentum through small wins and celebrating the things that are going right. It won't help you as a leader to manufacture day by day the authentic confidence and contentment that you need in order to spread that like wildfire through your organization. And so the high five habit is something that I think is so foundational for every human being. And it's only when you start to unpack it that you start to understand just how extraordinary it is and how profound it is in terms of how deeply it works inside of you.
I'm going to prove to you folks today that the secret to everything, the secret to believing in yourself when you don't know how to believe in yourself, it's just 5 seconds. I'm going to prove to you that there's a 5-second window that nobody talks about, and I'm so thrilled I get to share it with you because once you see it, you'll never unsee it. And this is the only thing that is holding you back from getting everything you've ever wanted. And that is that there is a 5-second window that defines your life. There's a 5-second window, I'm going to prove it to you today, between a moment when you feel confident and your self-doubt talking you out of it. A moment when you feel inspired to share what you're up to give somebody a sample, and fear stopping you. There's a 5-second window between feeling motivated and your excuses stopping you. And there is a 5-second window between feeling courageous, feeling like, okay, I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm going to go talk to that person over there, and boom, 5 seconds later, fear has stopped you. And we're going to talk about this word courage, because you're going to need it. And I don't know about you, but when I hear the word courage, you know what I think about? I think about the big stuff. I think about life or death. I think about my heroes. But I want you to consider something. To reach your God-given potential, to tap into the magic and joy and all the opportunity and success that you deserve and that your family deserves, it's going to require courage. Because courage, by definition, is just the ability to do something that feels scary or difficult or new or uncertain. That's what courage is. It's the little things. And it's the little 5-second changes. I'm going to prove to you today. It's the secret to this business. It's the secret to your marriage. It's the secret to everything. And in order to tell you the story of my secret weapon, I call it the 5-second rule, not the one we grew up with. You know, if you drop food on the floor, you pick it up, you blow the dog hair off, you're good to go. This is something I created during probably the worst moment of my life. And in order to tell you the story about it and how you're going to use it, I got to take you back 10 years to a moment in my life where, my God, every time the alarm went off, this is what I felt like doing to it. You ever feel like that? The alarm goes off, you're like, yeah, not today. Not today. I do not want to do this today. And, you know, the interesting thing is that you can know what you need to do. How many of you know what you need to do to grow this business? Yeah, is that going to make you do it? Of course not. How many of you know what you need to do to be healthier? Is that going to make you do it? I don't think so. You got to know how. How do you make yourself do the stuff after you've worked a full-time job and you've come home and you're tired and you got 4 kids to take care of and you got to be a wife or a husband, you got a million other things to deal with. How do you make yourself do the stuff when you don't feel like it? And here's another truth, everybody. There's always going to be an excuse not to. Always an excuse not to make that call. Always an excuse not to send that email. Always an excuse not to walk up to that person and tell them all about Total Life Changes. Always, always, always. And I had every excuse in the book. You see, 10 years ago, I had lost my job. I was unemployed. My husband had opened a pizza restaurant with our life savings, and that puppy was going under. We were about to lose our home. We had already lost our life savings. The liens had hit the house. The bankruptcy proceeding was a week away. And the financial stress, my God, it was taking us down the drain with it, along with our marriage, our sanity, our sobriety. This was 2008. Anybody else have a lousy year that year? You know, and we're not the only ones. It's not the world's craziest story. A lot of people in this room have faced those issues. But here's the thing. Isn't it easy to look at someone else's life and be like, oh, this is what you need to do? But when the change is happening to you, as personal, right? When the change is required of you, it's personal. And it's so much easier to do this. Oh, I don't deserve this, and this isn't fair, and this shouldn't be happening to me. And have you ever noticed that whenever you do that, you blame and you complain and you point the fingers and you come up with all these things? You ever noticed? that there's always 3 fingers pointing right back at you? It's so irritating. It's a reminder that the power is in you. Now, I knew what to do. I knew I should get up. I knew I should look for a job. I knew I shouldn't be nice to my husband. I knew I shouldn't drink so much. I knew I shouldn't isolate myself, but that didn't make me do any of this stuff. I was so stuck. And, you know, if I hadn't discovered what I'm about to share with you folks, I know that our marriage wouldn't have made it. I know that we would have lost everything, our family, our home. I have no idea what I'd be doing for a living. I'm certain I'd be an alcoholic. But thank God one night everything changed. Now, it's a really stupid story, so brace yourself. Okay, you ready? Yeah, here's what happened. So I was sitting in our living room, and have you ever been so desperate that you give yourself a pep talk? You know, and you're like, okay, that's it. Tomorrow morning, it's the new you. You're going to get up and go to the gym. You're going to be nice to people. You're not going to drink so much. You're going to look for a job. And by God, Mel Robbins, when that alarm clock rings, you're not hitting the snooze button and lying there and thinking about your problems. You, my friend, are going to get out of bed. And then all of a sudden, I saw this blast across the television screen. And I thought, oh, that's the answer. That's the answer to getting up on time. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, instead of lying in bed and having anxiety and overwhelm and thinking about all my problems and hitting the snooze button, avoiding my life, I'm going to launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship. I'm going to move so fast that I beat anxiety. I beat every excuse in the book. Now look, it could have been the 4 Manhattans I had that gave me that idea, because I was drinking an awful lot back then. It sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? But for whatever reason, I'll never forget it. It was a Tuesday in February, 10 years ago. That alarm clock went off. That's what happened. I immediately remembered that dumb countdown idea, the idea of launching myself out of bed. And then this 5-second window of hesitation that I'm going to reveal to you opened up. And I started thinking about getting up. And I started thinking about all the reasons why I didn't want to. And I started thinking about, oh, it's not going to work, and I don't feel like it. It's really cold. And I started reaching for the snooze button. And then I did something I had never done before. I started counting backwards, just like NASA does. To launch a rocket, I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And all of a sudden, for the first time in 6 months, I was up. I was like, 5, 4, 3, 2. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I went on with my day. The next morning, the alarm went off. That's what happened. I immediately remembered that countdown thing, and then I started thinking about what I needed to do. And all the excuses started to roll in, and I could feel myself hit the snooze button. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm up again. Weird. The third morning, the alarm went off. That's what happened. I immediately remembered the countdown thing, and I could feel all the anxiety and overwhelm and frustration coming in, and this isn't going to work, and I don't care, and I don't want you, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm up again. Now, by that point, I was kind of weirded out. I was like, do I come from like a line of witches or something? I mean, is this like a spell? I thought, okay, let's test this little spell, and let's see if I can try this countdown thing in other situations where I don't feel like it, where I'm afraid, where my emotions take over. And so I walk into the kitchen, and my husband, Chris, is standing there staring in the fridge. And you know how that thing happens? Where you see somebody you love, and you want to kill them, you know? So my poor husband, Chris, is standing there, you know, looking for breakfast, and I walk in, and I see him, and I'm like... And, you know, here's the thing. I didn't want to kill him. I loved him. I was just so scared. And I didn't think we were going to get out of this mess. And isn't it true that it's so much easier to be angry than it is to be in action? It's so much easier to complain about the problems than to focus on building a solution. I'm not proud of the fact that I was triggered all the time, that I was nasty to him. And that's a nice word for it. But I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and something crazy happened. Like my body settled, and I was able to speak to the guy from a place of my values instead of snapping at him. I see the phone. It would obviously help if I call and I start looking for a job, but I don't know about you folks. I hate cold calling. I hate network. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm picking up the phone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm picking up the phone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm cold calling my way into interviews and trying to land a job. And then I see my sneakers, and I don't know about you folks, but I don't like to exercise. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm out the door. And slowly but surely, my my whole life changed because I had this tool to push myself through the excuses that were stopping me and robbing me of my potential. Chris took it into the restaurant business. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're trying to renegotiate a lease with the landlord. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're going out and meeting with people with money and telling them the truth about what's going on. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly, one decision at a time, they pulled that restaurant business out of the wreckage. Now, I never intended to tell anybody about this. Because first of all, it sounds stupid. Oh, you want to change your life? Count to 5. Speech is over. I'm out, guys. See you later. The other thing is, I had no idea why it worked. I mean, why would something so simple work? Why would it work to help you get in shape? Why would it work to help change your business? Why would it work to help you land a job? Why would it work to help you not snap at your kids? Why would it work to help you calm your nerves? I had no idea. Well, that all changed. About 7 years ago, somebody asked me if I would come and give a talk about career change. Now, by this point, I had been using the 5-second rule for 3 years. I had changed my whole life using it. My marriage was back on track. I had the drinking under control. I'd cold called my way into a radio audition. I had a little Saturday morning show. That show took off and became syndicated. Next thing you know, I've won a big award. CNN is calling, and now I'm on TV as a legal analyst. Like, I can't believe this. Chris is opening a second restaurant. Our kids are doing okay. And so somebody says, hey, would you ever come give a talk, Mel, about career change? This was not a talk, by the way, about this 5-second thing. So this is the first time that I had ever given a speech in my entire life. If you would like to know what it looks like to have a 21-minute-long panic attack, I invite you to watch this thing. We're about a minute in here, ladies and gentlemen, and you notice I'm already getting that rash that you get on your neck when you start to get nervous. By minute 19, I have a full-blown panic attack on stage. Like, I completely forget where I am and what I'm supposed to say, and I look at the crowd of people and I go, oh, I know. There's this thing I do. I call it the 5-second rule. You gotta move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. Thank you. And I leave. And my husband's backstage and I say, Chris, that's like the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. Dear God, do not let me give a speech again. And then something crazy happened. A year later, somebody put this talk online. It now has 17 million views. That's not the crazy part. You wanna hear the crazy part? The crazy part is people started to write to me. And by people, I mean strangers. And by strangers, I mean 250,000 of them from 91 countries. And those are just the people who emailed. And you know what they said? They all said, holy cow, Mel, I started using this 5-second thingy. And I'm on pace to double my business, and I'm able to be present with my kids. And my word, I started using this 5-second thingy, and I've got the courage to reach out to people that I admire, and wow, they're responding. Whoa, I brought this back to my sales team at work, and we're #1 in the region. Crystal's team, #1 in the country last year. Why? You're not selling anything if you're thinking about selling it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that's right, interrupts your habit of thinking about it and creates a habit of doing it, okay? Should you take it back to your teams and your friends? And of course you should. Should you teach it to your children?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes, but proceed with caution because they will use it on you, you know what I'm saying? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Mom, lower your tone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Dad, you said you were going to the gym. Now, one of the things that has blown my mind is that it's being used particularly in combination with other therapies, everybody, to help people manage addiction. We hear from somebody, we reach 1 million people online every single day on our social media platforms, and I hope to God that you follow us so we can stay in touch. And you should tape this and photograph this and use everything I'm saying to your advantage, so please, keep your phones out and do what you need to get what you need. You understand? You be selfish about our time together. And you know, the thing that's really blown my mind though, you know, people write to us every day. We hear from at least one person a day that says, when I think about sobriety as a 5-second decision that I make all day long, somehow shrinking it makes it feel more manageable. But I'll tell you, I never thought that something so simple would actually save lives. As of last week, we know of 76 people who have not committed suicide because they've used the 5-second rule to stop themselves. It's incredible. Incredible. This guy right here, everybody, his name is Steve Montgomery. And Steve is a veteran. And like way too many of our veterans, he has PTSD. And he wrote to us about this very moment. You see, he boarded a ferry overseas with the intention of ending it all, jumping overboard. And look, I don't know where you are in your life. I don't know if you're at the most amazing moment and you feel just fabulous, or if you're feeling pretty low. But I do know one thing. There is wisdom inside you. It's like an alarm that goes off all day long. It's the power that is in you. It is talking to you all the time. It is pushing you forward. It is calling for your greatness. And it doesn't leave you. It's a matter of whether or not you have the clarity to hear it and the courage to listen to it. So Steve's about to jump, and that alarm, that power that will help you make your dreams come true, that will change your life, that will allow you to believe in yourself when you start to think that you don't believe in yourself. It speaks to him and it says, you know, this is not the answer. Now he knows the 5-second rule. So he starts counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here's what I'm going to teach all of you. There's actually science behind this. It's amazing. What happens when you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, is you interrupt what we call habit loops. It's patterns of thinking, patterns of behavior that don't serve you. You interrupt those, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And by the time you get to 1, you've drawn your focus to your prefrontal cortex. Now that's a big word. Here's what it means. Your prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your mind that you're using when you're in control of what you're thinking about, when you're acting with courage, when you're selling. Basically, the 5-second rule is a cheat code that allows you to turn off the part of the brain that is sabotaging your success, that is doubting you, and to activate the part of your brain that gives you control to everything. Now, if you wanted the license plate, it's already gone in Arizona, and I have a couple disclaimers. The 5-second rule is a tool you're going to use to push yourself out of your comfort zone, to push yourself through your excuses. You're going to use it to make micro changes. You're going to use yourself to push forward. This is not to be used to sign a contract, okay? This is not to be used to get married. This is not to be used to make a gambling bet. And please, if you plan on putting this permanently on your body, think longer than 5 seconds before you slap something like that on your wrist. You know, you might consider a bracelet before you put something hideous on your leg. You know, that this just was 3 days ago we got this photo. And, you know, of all the photos we've received, and we've received thousands of tattoos, this is my favorite. And the reason why is this is your life. This is my life. You see, if you stop and think about it, the world's changing all the time. Right underneath your feet, right before your eyes. And you can't control that, neither can I. It's this infinite loop of amazing things that are happening to and around you. And some of it's going to be fabulous and mind-blowing and spectacular, and some of it's going to be heartbreaking and devastating. And none of us can change that fact. But when you understand a simple idea, that you just stop worrying about all that stuff that's going on around you, and you focus on your 5-second window of what you choose to think and do in response, and you control absolutely everything. And one of the coolest things about the 5-second rule, and I'm going to show you how to use it to build your business, to cure yourself of anxiety, to do all kinds of amazing things. But when you start to play around with this 5-second window and you realize, hey, you don't necessarily choose the stuff that's going to happen to you in your life, but you can always choose how you respond to it, you will never be knocked off your values, no matter what happens. Just ask Kyle. So let's go back to you being selfish, okay? I want you to hold on to this idea of what do you want in your life? What are your dreams for you? And then I want you to bring it back to yourself. Think about that excuse that is stopping you, the one that you always reach for, like I was reaching for the snooze alarm. And I want you to think to yourself, what do you need to change? And it could be something good. Like I have this huge thing going on in my life right now. I have a brand new, you guys, I landed a daytime syndicated talk show. No kidding. September 16th. I hope you'll tune in 5 days a week. Watch out, Dr. Phil, because the Mel Robbins show is going to be airing nationwide. That's right. And when I think about all the changes I've made in the last 10 years, my God, I'm exhausted. And when I think about what it's going to take for me to be successful in this next stage of my life, right? That's right, I hear you. And to do 175 shows a year, and to be a lifeline for people every day, and what it's going to take for me and my habits. I got a lot I need to change. I need to be more deliberate about a lot of things. I got to be more present with my family when I'm around them. I got to make sure that I stay centered. And so I want you to think about, when you think about that next chapter that can start right now, what is it that you need to change for the good? That small little tweak. And I want you to hold on to that, because this is an easy question to answer. The real one is this one. Do you have the will to push yourself to change? When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when somebody said something just nasty or racist or sexist to you and it brought you down, do you have the will to keep pushing forward? And the answer is, yep, you will, because you're going to have this puppy in your back pocket, okay? So let me explain how you use it. The next time you're in a situation where that alarm goes off, you kind of know what to do. You feel that little bit of confidence. You feel that hope. You feel that courage coming up. And then you feel that 5-second window of hesitation open up, and those excuses roll in, and you start to feel yourself shrinking. You start to feel yourself getting silent. You start to feel yourself backing away from that thing you know you need to do. You're going to pull out the 5-second rule and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and step forward. Now, a couple things about that. If you are with a group of people, do not count out loud, because you will sound like a weirdo. I do not want you in a meeting going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're like, oh my God, what is happening over there? A couple other things. Don't count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't work. The reason why 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't work is because you and I were taught to count up in whatever language we were taught to count it in since we were yay high. It's already a pattern that is stored right here that you can do on autopilot. You can do it without thinking. I want you to develop a new pattern when you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and you activate this puppy right here. Let me show you what's actually happening in your brain when you use forms of metacognition. Now, metacognition is just a fancy word that means brain trick. That's all. You have the ability to outsmart your own mind. You have the ability to use simple tricks to be able to control which part of the brain that you're using. So this guy right here is a simulation of a functional MRI when people are using forms of metacognition. That red part right there, it's the interior part of your brain. It's where all your habits are. It's where your emotions are stored. It's where every pattern that you know, from driving a car to doubting yourself, to feeling anxious, to worrying about what other people think, those patterns that are sabotaging you, right there in the red part. The green part, that's your prefrontal cortex. That's going to make you more money. That's going to make you happier. That's going to allow you to develop new skills. That's what you're using when you're in control of what you're doing. So let's count out loud backwards together, and let's see what happens when you use this. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. For those of you that felt pressure right there, don't worry, I'm not a hypnotist. That's just evidence, and you're going to feel that from time to time, that you're actually shifting gears in terms of which part of the mind that you're using. You know, when you first start using this, I think it's really obvious how you use it. You use it to do very irritating things, okay? You're going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to the gym. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to talk about total life changes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to put down the drink. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to lower your voice. And look, you're probably going to hate me at times. I'm cool with that if you're changing your life for the better. I don't mind if you hate me. And I want to say something else about changing your life for the better. Do you realize I have been using the 5-second rule for 10 years. I use it every single morning to get out of bed. I hate getting out of bed. I use it every day to exercise. I hate exercising. I want you to understand something. There are going to be things that you need to do to heal your family, to build your business, to make more money, that you may never like. That's okay. You can still do it. So I don't want you to expect that you're ever going to love having to make a cold call. You may always hate it. but you can still do it. I think about it like loading the dishwasher. I hate doing that too, but I still do it. Now I want to show you, given that I think the physical stuff is obvious, I want to show you two really important things. First of all, I'm going to show you a bunch of 5-second habits. These are habits that I have, that I do every single morning and every single night, and it is the reason why I am so successful. And it is the reason why I can focus on what's important most of the time and not get caught up in the baloney, okay? And so most of you are going to hate these. I want you to try them anyway. And so these are my 5-second habits that I want you all to adopt. And I promise you, if you adopt these, play around with them, you will make more money. You will make more money in less time. You will feel less anxiety. You will be less distracted. And I promise you, you're going to hate every one of them. You ready? Here we go. So the first one is about your phone. I want to put something into perspective for you. We live in what I call the attention economy, okay? That means your attention is for sale. Whenever you're on Facebook, whenever you're on social media and you're just kind of wasting time scrolling, if you click on something, you just made somebody money. They just bought your attention. And so one of the things I want to shift your perspective about is it's become more important than ever that you realize that your phone is perhaps the most important tool in your business, right? You got that? For those of you that don't have enough time, the reason why you don't has to do with how much time you waste on this. And so, yeah, I know, I don't like what she's talking about. I don't like this at all. It's true. If you want to, I want you to wake up and realize how often you're really using this to further your business and your goals. Or when you're the one that's making other people money because you're spending all your time clicking on a bunch of crap that doesn't matter. All right? So, one of the number one rules that I have that I want you to adopt, and it takes 5 seconds, I don't want you to ever have your phone in your bedroom. What? What? How dare you? Excuse me? I do not want your phone in your bedroom, and there's a couple reasons why. Number one, you're addicted to it, okay? Number two, this is sickening. You ready? 33% of you are checking email in the middle of the night. Look, I'm 50 years old. I get up at 2:13 every morning, you know, and I got to go to the bathroom, and it's nice to have a flashlight, but if you got it, then you're going to look at it. This is sick. And most of you don't even realize that you're doing it, and then you wonder, I'm getting sleep, I can't sleep. You want to know the other thing that's sick? 87% of you check it before you brush your teeth. You want to know why you wake up anxious and out of control and you got no time and you're freaked out? It's because you look at this thing before you even get out of bed. I mean, think about it. You're like sleeping. If it's next to you and the alarm goes off, what are you going to do? Oh my God. That's what's going on today in the news? Oh my God, what's happened? That person's on vacation again, I hate them. And you wake up and you're like totally freaked out and upset and now you don't know why you don't know, and that's why your day starts. Is it any wonder if that's how your day starts, why you don't have time? Why your mind is already out of your control? You have to put this out of your bedroom, and here's why. I don't trust you, and you shouldn't trust you either with it. Now, here's the second rule. So it's not in your bedroom, so the alarm goes off. I don't want you to hit the snooze button. Now, here's why. The reason why has to do with the way your brain works. Your productivity and your focus has nothing to do with when you get up. It has everything to do with how you get up. So if you and I, we sleep in sleep cycles. So you fall asleep, it takes, a little while, and then you drift into a sleep cycle, and a sleep cycle is about 75 to 90 minutes. And then you do another one, 75 to 90 minutes. And then you do another one, 75 to 90 minutes. And then your brain goes into a phase where it starts to thaw like a giant chicken, to come awake. And when the alarm goes off, great, get up, you're in the thaw zone. Your brain is ready to start the day. If you hit the snooze button, like I used to hit the snooze button, and then you drift back to sleep, what do you suppose your mind drifts into? Sleep cycle. How long do those take? 75 to 90 minutes. So when that alarm goes off 15 minutes later and you wake up, your brain is now trapped in a sleep cycle. Sleep researchers, psychologists, neurologists, they call it sleep inertia. If your brain is in a sleep cycle, it impairs your ability to process, to focus, to remember for 4 hours. So those of you that keep hitting the snooze button and then you spend the day going, oh my God, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Whoa, I feel so groggy. It's nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It has to do with the fact that you screwed yourself over. You basically put yourself back in a sleep cycle and then made yourself wake up, and now you're walking around like the Walking Dead for 4 hours. So no snooze button. Not because it's enjoyable, but because that's what your brain needs, and that's what your business needs. And that's what you need in order to focus. Now, what do I want you to do? I want you to do something called 30 before 7:30. That means take 30 minutes. If you can't find 30 minutes, take 5. What do you not see in this photo? Her phone. That's right. What are you doing during this time? So the alarm went off, the phone wasn't there, so you didn't look at it. You had to get out of bed, because you didn't hit the snooze button. You now find 5 to 30 minutes. I started calling this 30 before 7:30 because my first kid got on the bus at 7 o'clock, so that was the first 30 minutes that I could find in the day where things weren't crazy, you know what I'm saying? And so this is what mine looks like. No makeup, pajamas, and no phone. Now, what are you doing in those 5 to 30 minutes? You haven't looked at your phone yet, so you haven't let the craziness of the world into your mind. You have not been hijacked by the attention economy. You've woken up and your brain is ready to go. All I want you to do is I want you to just think about your day. Just think about your day. And here's something that I stole from the folks at Harvard Business School that has changed how I do my day. And that is, all I want you to do is figure out today what is one thing that I want to work on and one way that I can make progress. That's it. So you're going to wake up, not have your phone. You're going to sit down with a cup of coffee or tea, a glass of water, or whatever. You're going to find 5 to 30 minutes before you turn on the TV or turn on the radio or look at the social media. And you're going to ask yourself, what's the one thing I want to work on today? And what's one little puny thing that I can do to inch that thing forward? Can I send an email? Can I watch a video? Can I go through my social media and unfollow people that trigger me? Can I, can I make a phone call? Can I read some of the latest training from Total Life Changes? Yeah, what can I do? What's one thing? That's all I want you to do every day, because if you just did one thing every day to inch this business forward for you, you would be shocked where you are a year from now. And I'm going to tell you, it begins and ends with you giving yourself the key time before the day starts. Don't your dreams deserve 30 lousy minutes? Doesn't your mental health deserve 30 lousy minutes? And you're not going to get it the rest of the day. You're just not. And so this has really changed my life. And so what do? The last thing I do at the end of the day, I charge my phone in the kitchen at night. That's what I do. That's what I do with our kids' phones too. They stay in the kitchen or in the closet somewhere away. That's the last thing I do, so that when I go into my bedroom, it's not there. I'm not even tempted. Those are 5-second habits that will fundamentally change your mindset. It'll change your sense of control. It will give you the little momentum every morning, and every single one of you can 5 minutes in the morning. Every single one of you can charge the phone in the kitchen. And by the way, if you want to see a video where I explain this for free, I'm not selling you anything. We just get a lot of questions about this. You can just go to melrobbins.com/free gift. It's a video explaining the science of all of this in even greater depth. And that's my thank you to you for inviting me here. So if this makes you nervous, good. That's right, good. Because you know what? Nerves are normal. Nerves are important. If you're not doing something once a week that makes you nervous, you should be. Because it means you're not doing anything new, you know? This is part of changing. And so now that I've given you the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know how to push yourself, you know how to coach yourself, you know how to beat all the excuses, you know how to close the gap between thinking and doing, you know how to close the gap between doubting yourself and acting with confidence, you know how to close the gap between fear stopping you and being a little courageous. Now I want to give you a couple really cool tricks around dealing with nerves. Because now that you're going to push yourself, you're going to find yourself in situations that make you nervous. Awesome. I want you nervous at least once a week. I want you out on the edge. I want you feeling like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Can I do this? Well, we're gonna push you to do it. And so it's a medical fact that there's no difference in your body medically when you're in a situation that makes you nervous and a situation that makes you excited. No difference. Like, think about it. In a moment where you're really excited, your stomach has butterflies, right? Same thing's true when you're nervous. In a moment when you're really excited, your armpits, they sweat like Niagara Falls, right? Same thing when you're nervous. Your heart races, your throat gets tight, your hands get clammy. Medical fact. There is no difference between a situation that makes you nervous. I mean, is she nervous? Or is she excited? Whatever you're thinking, you're right, by the way. Because the only thing that's different between a situation that's supposedly making you nervous and excited is what your brain is saying about it. So the folks at Harvard Medical School wonder, geez, I wonder, since it's a medical fact that your body is exactly the same when you're nervous as when you're excited, could we trick your brain into thinking you're excited in a moment when you're nervous? The answer is yes, you certainly can. So let me show you the really awesome little trick, because they tested this at Harvard Medical School, and it was fascinating. Every single student who was taught to do what I'm about to teach you before a standardized test performed better. Before a track meet, ran faster. Before a negotiation competition, did better. Here's the simple trick. The next time you're in a situation that makes you nervous, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're going to go, I am so excited to fire this person. No bad joke? Okay, well, that situation makes me nervous. Makes me very nervous. I'm so excited to give this presentation. I'm so excited to give this sample out. I am so excited. And something crazy is going to happen. Your body is going to settle. And you are going to perform better even though you feel nervous. And you're going to be shocked, just like Chris was shocked. I used the 5-second rule before a presentation. I used nervous energy to be excited. It worked. Here's the reason why it works. If you're in a situation that makes you nervous and you allow your thoughts to spiral, your own thoughts make your body state worse. When your body state starts to get even more agitated, cortisol, a stress hormone, hits your brain. When cortisol hits your prefrontal cortex, guess what happens? You can't remember what you prepared. You can't process as quickly. So it's not that your preparation in talking to people about this business wasn't good. It's that you allowed your own nerves to release cortisol, and that stopped you from leveraging what you know. It's absolutely amazing. And you need to know this because you're now going to be in situations, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that really, really, really make you nervous. And that's good. Now you know all you have to do is be like, I'm so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so excited. And you will be startled by how well it works. Now I want to build on that and talk about anxiety, okay? And if you have children that struggle with anxiety, first of all, you're not alone. And secondly, I want you to pay attention because the 5-second rule is a remarkable tool that you can use to help your children with anxiety. Now, we've seen a rise in anxiety with our own kids. I was speaking for a massive audience of pediatricians, and a pediatrician came up to me a couple weeks ago after a speech and said, I'm so glad you're talking about this because, you know, a couple years ago, Mel, we would have 3 or 4 appointments a week where parents would raise anxiety as like an issue. I have 5 or 6 appointments a day where it's the primary thing they're coming in with. And I'm sure if you've seen a rise in your own family and you're worried about it, you know, I want you to know that you're not alone. The other reason why I talk about this is because when I talk about anxiety, it's personal. You know, a lot of people will look at me, particularly on stage or in the videos we put out online, and they're like, oh, Mel, whatever. She was just born confident and annoying. Annoying for sure. Just ask my baby brother, Derek. Confident? No way. I think if you could be a baby that worries, that was me. I was the kind of kid that, like, my face would turn bright red when I got called on in class. And when I was in 6th grade, growing up in Western Michigan, my parents, they sent me to Girl Scout camp in Pentwater. I was so homesick, they sent me home. I mean, do you know how homesick you need to be for trained adults to be like, you need to leave? This is out of hand. By the time I was 19, it was panic attacks. By the time I was 21, it was full-blown anxiety disorder. And thank God a doctor put me on Zoloft. You know, I took that drug for 25 years. And I had no shame in that. I mean, it was a lifesaver for me. In fact, the only time I stopped taking it was when our now 20-year-old daughter was born. And I had such severe postpartum depression, like the really scary kind. I couldn't be left alone with our daughter for 8 weeks. So when I talk about how you and I torture ourselves with how we think, I have lived this nightmare. Now, about 5 years ago, as the 5-second rule started to spread around the world, and I was like overwhelmed with the stories coming in. Something happens to you when you put something out in the world and it helps people change their lives. I know you feel that in your own business as a life changer, right? Like you feel like so humbled, and you also feel a sense of responsibility, don't you? I felt a sense of responsibility to not only be able to explain why does something so simple work and help people, but I also felt a responsibility to take a look in the mirror and deal with my own demons. And so I thought, you know, I wonder if you could use the 5-second rule to do things other than physical habits. I wonder if you could change mental habits. I wonder if you could change your mindset. I wonder if I could cure myself of anxiety. And the answer is, yep, you sure can. In fact, I've been off meds for 5 years. I haven't had a panic attack, a bout of anxiety. I don't even worry about anything. So it's amazing. It is liberating. When you embrace the idea, everybody, I want to tell you something. I don't know who trained you to talk the way that you talk to yourself. I don't know who trained you to think you're not worthy, or you're not good enough, or you're not likable. You're not to blame for that. But you have a responsibility to change how you talk to yourself. And I'm going to show you how you do that using science. Are you ready? It's amazing. And I'm going to use an example that many of you may be able to relate to, and that's the fear of flying. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the research you just learned from Harvard Medical School about reframing nerves into excitement. Because remember, nerves and excitement, the same thing. And the danger of allowing yourself to stay worried is that you agitate your body further. Believe it or not, there's a really tight connection between worry and anxiety. Worry is your thoughts being negative. Anxiety is when your thoughts get so negative your body starts to get worried. Okay? That's like the little sister and the big sister. A panic attack is when your body becomes so agitated that it's like, oh my God, I think I'm going to die, and it takes over. It's like the mother, okay? So I'm going to use this example to break apart how we think and to show you how to use the I'm excited trick from Harvard Medical School along with something that we call an anchor thought that will anchor your thoughts down and retrain your brain. So the fear of flying. I used to be a real nervous flyer, meaning I was a real weirdo. I would get to the airport, like I'm going to go to the airport tonight for my flight at 6:30, and I would get to the gate, and I'd be looking around at the gate area, And I had this whole thing where I wanted to see 3 kinds of passengers, ladies and gentlemen. I want to see a baby. We got a baby. Yes. I want to see someone in a wheelchair. Awesome. And I'd like to see men and women in the service. Because if those folks are getting on my plane, I could say, all right, God's not going to let this plane go down if they're on it, so it's safe to board. You know what I mean? And then I would get to the seat, and I would click that buckle, and the nerves would kick in, and the stomach would be in knots, and the armpits would be sweating like Niagara Falls, and my hands would get clammy, and start drinking water. And if you were next to me as I started my breathing, you would literally be like, why me? Why me next to this freak? And so I would try to keep it together as the plane is taxiing. And then the plane would take off, and as it takes off, it's like, okay, it's going up, and then you know how the plane takes off and then it levels off and it goes from like to and it feels like it's about to fall out of the sky. At that point, all bets are off. I start having a panic attack. I've grabbed you. I'm hyperventilating. I pull out my phone and I text Chris and our 3 children, Mommy loves you. Heart emoji. Because if this plane is about to crash, I want my kids to know I tried to be the best mother that I could. And that way at my funeral, when they deliver my eulogy, they can put those text messages in the PowerPoint, you know, and they can show you. And you giggle because we're sick. We're sick human beings. If I were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast the garbage you say to yourself, you wouldn't be here with us in Dallas. You'd be in an institution. But you listen to it. You listen to it. You listen to it. Oh my God. Why do you listen to this? It's insane. You get an email from your boss, you're like, I'm fired. You know, you get an email from somebody in corporate, what did I do? You have to stop it. It is a habit. It's a pattern. That's all it is. And you can break it. And you can replace it. And if you use the 5-second rule for nothing else, please go to war against how you talk to yourself. It will not make you more money to keep saying this crap to yourself. You are worthy. You do deserve it. You are smart enough. You work hard. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of success. Period. End of story. Yes, you are. So here's how you do it. When I get on the plane, before I get on that plane, so before you go through your day, I know exactly what triggers me on the plane. It's when we hit turbulence. There's something about that metal tube bouncing around at 30,000 feet in the air that makes me a little nervous, you know what I mean? So I come up with an anchor thought. An anchor thought is any thought related to what you're about to do that excites you. So if you're nervous about sharing total life changes, come up with an anchor thought that makes you excited. Think about what you love about this stuff. Think about the fact that you're going to give people a gift. It's a free sample, for crying out loud. Think about the impact this has made on your life. That's your anchor thought. If you have kids that struggle with anxiety, go through their day and talk about everything that makes them nervous and help them come up with another thought that could make them excited about what's going to happen. So I always think, if I'm flying back to Boston, I always think about, okay, what am I excited to do when I get home? Well, I'm excited to walk in the front door because we have a crazy 14-year-old son that always has some kind of wacko greeting, and I love it. And so when I get on the plane tonight, and we fly back east, and we bounce around over the rainstorms that hit the plains today, and my mind goes, oh my God, oh my God. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about that. I am interrupting that thought. I am yanking my thoughts forward to here, and I am dropping in an anchor thought. I am so excited to walk in the front door and see what he does tonight. Huh? right? And so what happens? Nothing. It's amazing. What happens is I yank my thoughts to my prefrontal cortex, and because I'm now thinking about something that's related, my mind's like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. She's not nervous about dying. She's excited to get home. That's it. So when you start to feel the butterflies coming, they're going to come. That's cool. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. I love that. Yay, you. Grow. Do it. Then go, I'm so excited to make a difference. I'm so excited to have a team of people. I am so excited to change my own life. I am so excited to give this gift and share this sample. I am so excited to have this conversation and remove the garbage that is between me and my dad or my mom or my spouse or my kid. And that anchor thought will anchor you down. And what's amazing, we had somebody write to us, you guys. I'm so proud of this. We had somebody write to us 2 weeks ago that follows us online, learned this by just watching some videos that we put out, and she said her 6-year-old was so overwhelmed with anxiety, she was getting physically ill before school, throwing up. That anxious, working herself into a tizzy. And she started using this simple formula I've just given to you. Go through your day. She's like, well, what are you worried about in the first period? What are you worried about in the second period? Okay, well, what can we think about that would be exciting? And what could you think about if you have to go to the nurse? And what could you... Do you know in 2 days, 2 days, using just the 5-second rule, I'm excited and anchor thoughts, this little girl is no longer getting sick and in fact was bounding out of the car going, I am so excited, this stuff works, but it doesn't work if you don't use it. So if you don't think you have anxiety, I think you're wrong. I think we all do. I love this email from Mohammed. Thank you, Mel. I had an important email to send, but I was afraid. How many of us have an email or a phone call, right? We're thinking about it. We're afraid. Why are we afraid? Because we're uncertain. That's all that triggers us. We're uncertain about how it's going to go. Do you know that thinking about it doesn't create certainty? The only thing that will give you certainty is you taking control in that 5-second window, changing how you think, and taking control of what you do in response. And I'm telling you, the secret is just 5 seconds. That's it. You don't have to worry about the big stuff. You've got to worry about these 5-second windows. You've got to worry about whether or not you got the clarity and the courage to hear the alarm and the power and the genius that is inside of you. And, you can get resigned. I was resigned. I didn't think, how on earth could simply getting my butt out of bed, how could that make a difference when our problems are so big? I'm telling you, you change your life one decision at a time. In fact, I think you're just one decision away from a totally different life. You're one decision away from not torturing yourself upstairs. It's the big stuff that you change with the littlest moments. Just ask Brittany and Todd. So today's Brittany's wedding day, and what you can't tell is it's been a terrible decade for the family because Brittany and Todd's mom got a divorce, and what are the rules of the divorce? Oh, you hate each other, and you fight like cats and dogs, you hire lawyers, you spend all your money, and you lose everything, and finally the dust settles and the divorce is final, and then what happens? Oh, everybody remarries, and it's like a big team sport of hate again. So, he's walking his new wife up the aisle, and that alarm goes off. That alarm that's inside of you, that is trying to signal you to pay attention, that there's magic here, there's connection here, there's change here, there's power here. That alarm goes off and it says, dude, you got to do something to heal this family. He sets his new wife down, he makes a 5-second decision. There were a million reasons not to do what he did. But he turned around, he walked back, he grabbed this man. That's a man he hates, that's Brittany's stepdad. Just look at the lady next to them, for crying out loud, you guys. And invited him to walk their daughter down the aisle. One decision changes everything. Just ask his family. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.